Hello there, traveler. It's another day as we begin the more perilous parts of the path as we begin to make our trek out of the Tavern Post Inn and finding our next stop on this wonderful journey. As I've been saying more and more recently, the intention behind this time and place, right, is to understand what this path is. Put a little bit more color into this rendering, right? As we try to understand some of the integral parts of this journey that we find ourselves on. Leave the familiarity of the Tavern Post Inn and the comforts of laughter and weekly meditations. And start to get into the weeds a little bit here. Start to get a little bit deeper into the forest. Just taking, again, as always, one step at a time. Brush becomes a little bit thicker. The calls of the animals starts to get a little bit more foreign. Not as familiar with those little tweedledees and tweedledums. But that's okay. We're still walking this path. It's still not unfamiliar. It's still a familiar path, right? It's still just one step at a time. But we can begin to take a moment, let our senses adjust, and really begin to look through between the trees. Oh, what is that you see? Is that a red shirt? Is that someone chuckling over there? Oh my God, we're not the only ones over here. Oh my God, hi Jared, how you doing? Oh, just going for another weird walk meditation through the forest and decided that it might have been another good enough time to take another step forward on this descent, on this journey. And luckily enough, you decided to appear and I think maybe help us and take us guide and really try to understand what some of these stories might be. No, I think that's really fun. We try to always, this time that we create here, we intentionally create it outside of time and space, right? So, I think that we try to accidentally invite whatever quantum immortality, whatever hive mind overlord, right, to be able to give us these physical experiences while we recant these tales and everything like that. Because we're all about believability in this lo-fi experience. It is an art form. Oh, we are here. Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's kind of what, without going too far into QAnon and it, with this dark storm as we're calling it, right? This period of, let's say another word, unfamiliarity, right? This was a time period that you, without laying too much of the groundwork here for you, it is your story, but this is a time period where for the first time in your life, your worldview, as I have understood it, really drastically changed. In a sense where how the world actually itself worked and what is possible in the world can change, right? That foundation, right, and everything like that. So let's pull it back just a brief moment, real quick, and let's say what was right before the storm. Where was Jared and their family? What was going on, and then what happened? Which one? The great one. There we go. The great one. So how did that actually, guys, impact you, right? We all know that from the history books, as they like to say, that like basically financial industry, super predatory, a lot of bad investments happened, a lot of things fell under. Basically, this is a recession that was characterized and typically affecting the construction industry and blue collar, typically male workers, right? That was what was really marked within this recession, right? Is one of the big differences between the COVID one that happened, right? Was it was more of a service industry based one, right? So this is knowing your family dynamic and everything like that, where your parents are involved in their careers and everything like that. The construction industry is pretty important to how the West household was supplying their livelihood and everything like that. So this is a recession that truly impacted your guys' family demographic. Your guys' what the family demographic that was affected by this, right? That truly when construction all but stopped in this country, right? That meant for both of your parents who had jobs within the development, right? You know, work stopped for them too as well, right? So your family went through basically the booms of the .com bubble and all the industry that happened with that to this basically hard reset. So what was that like for little Jared? Yes. Oh, it's just solid like mid Jared. Now, tell me about that, actually, right? So you talked about this very traumatic situation, right? You talked about something that really sucks. You talked about basically your entire family going bankrupt. You talked about watching your house get foreclosed upon and your house and your car get repossessed. Actual traumas of like what it is to go through poverty, right? And to go from those different places and come from a place that you are self-describing as spoiled and when realistically was a place of definitely having. But was very in line with the generation at the time and everything like that. Normal even, right? So you're going from this normal base to this base of, like you said, a great reset of how your perception and your reality is constructed, right? What was you alluded to how your parents dug down deeper into their faith, right? And this was a position for you too as well, while at the same time being this cognitive dissonance too. Talk about tell me about these all these different how did you rationalize these in these greater worldview senses of views, like these losses, these things being taken away, these hard resets, because ultimately, like as you said right now, these might be good things for you, and you can look back at it positively and how this shaped you. That wasn't what Jared in the moment was feeling, I'm pretty sure. What was that like? Like you go back to that moment, right, of being like, oh, my parents aren't like secure. and you're taking that change, right? You're seeing your mom adapt right into this, something that is different for you, right? I'm not trying to put any kind of good or bad label on reverting back to prayer in traumatic times, but that, like you said, that's scary, right? That is a very abrupt change into your family's dynamics relationship with God, right? And how you guys perceive the divine. That's a pretty intense change, right? And again, not trying to put subjective good or bad or anything like that on it, but that's a jarring worldview difference of what is this place of what you were associating as casual benevolency, right? With how you guys described your relationship, right, with God, essentially, right? Into this one where you're like, oh, this is a fear-based response now, and my mom isn't okay, and that's crazy, dude. That's a pretty insane transition. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that you you talk about how you kind of internalized it in this almost voiding out, right? Zoning out, I think is the exact wording you used, right? So you could start to experience, like, your mom is experiencing this in a pretty profound and pretty direct way, right? And going through their expression of that. And that's, instead of being a point for your family to kind of coalesce over, right? And have some kind of unify. You guys really almost all had your own individual breakdowns of experiences, right, on it, right? And at least in your case, it really led to your ultimately, like you said, that first crack in kind of how you were perceiving these worldviews, right? And I think you touched on something that I really want to really hear you expand upon real quick, actually. I'd really like to know, he talks about having these experiences, right, in seeing your mom have a pretty fanatical experience in a pretty intense, robust way. And you see your dad having this way that you personally resonate with you more, but in zoning out, right? You talked about the transition of what God essentially and religion played in your family's life. That it went from being this kind of all-encompassing, just, oh yeah, we're Christians, but like we believe in Jesus, and kind of more of this abstract teaching kind of evangelical way, to this direct thing that you are now calling on as a resource to exemplify, and to, like you said, to put in your answers when you don't have answers, right? So you've now seen this transition in how religion is an answer to life, or as a kind of a not an answer to life, but a mode of going about things. I'd really like to hear like what this transition really started to be. Like you said, it started being kind of a little bit of cognitive dissonance for you. And it ultimately, it leads to being a lot of one of those cracks that breaks the damn wall for you and everything like that. But talk about that experience and like transitioning, like what the divine played in your modality. That's a lot. It's a lot that happened in a very quick time period, right? You know, I think you touched on some really, really important transitions into some of the factors that ultimately led you to what's the proper way of saying it, right? Accepting Jesus Christ into your heart into a different way, right? As you would have described at that time, right? And you talked about someone who went through a lot of internal conflict at a young age into being able to accept that decision, actually. And I think that is something that's really interesting to highlight and worth kind of exploring, right? This isn't someone who just when good was able to accept it, right? You're very actively talking about how this was weird to you. This was uncomfortable to you. This increase in religiosity was not something you were readily accepting into your heart, right? And something you were interested in. But because of some pretty other important factors, right, that went on, it was something that did find its ultimate appeal, right? Talk to me about that, right? Talk to me about those decisions. I know you talked quite a bit about it already, but let's get a little bit more into the weeds about like that actual pathway into acceptance right there, right? The good word. That's taking Jesus Christ into your heart, if I've ever heard it, right there, right? I think intentionally choosing a baptism in your late teenage years, that's it's making a conscious choice, right? And I think you touched on some really interesting elements that led you to that conscious choice, that I think are really worth calling out here. You did not connect with the Bible itself, actually, which is really interesting. Didn't take it any more than allegorical story, is I believe the wording you used. You did not connect with, honestly, the mystic of the divine. You weren't in there for a fanatical experience like you might see within Pentecostal or some of the more charismatic faiths, right? You weren't. You were even, honestly, you were turned off by worship music even to that point, right? Worship music even was just like, that's not my vibe right there. Maybe from a little bit more of a critical music perspective, but still, so you weren't into it, right? So you yeah. And even in the tradition, you did not connect with the tradition. You didn't like the alms. You didn't like these little practices and stuff like that. There's a lot of actual things here that you just did not connect with. But there are two really important elements that I hear you connecting with, right? Community, the shared experience with your family, and these other people that you went there with and actually being able to connect with, right? So God to you, it sounds like at this time, was a very communal force. It was a human factor, right, in that regard, right, where it was literally this bringing humans together force, right, and a way to connect with people. And messaging, you were very much looking for answers. You were very much looking for understanding, whether it's that meditation, like you said, a sermon of the week just to think about, right, just to connect with, right, and stuff like that. So you're very intrinsically looking for, like you said, seeking answers, right? So I think those, are two very things that are very reflective, I think, of anyone that should be going through their teenage years, right? Of, what is this? Who are my people? Who are my tribe? What is my community, right? And what is life? What are these things? What are these things, right? So I think that you found God and you ultimately chose to accept Jesus Christ into your heart through baptism because of these two very, very intrinsic motivations, right? That you were able to experience the divine through, which I want to highlight, was a minority of what you just described to me. You just described to me much more experiences of disconnect, of that cognitive dissonance, right? Of things that you did not like about in the church. You did not connect with the Christianity, and in fact were pretty off-putting to you, like extra to the point of like uncomfortability. That made and with your own matriarchal figure at times too, right? And you even still experienced that uncomfort and still were able to be like, no, this community supersedes that. That this supersedes that disconnection and this discomfort that I'm experiencing in all these other ways that really are screaming a lot at you and are, again, it seems like the majority of your experience right there, because that's what you just spent the most time of what you were talking about right there. But these other two things, you could just hear yourself talking about it, right? The meaning in that, what community and trying to find answers meant to both you and your family at this time, right? And ultimately, it really seems like such a powerful, I don't know if that's the right word I want to use, such a motivation into your descent at this time, right? Into how you were constructing your worldview. The two most important things were community and answers, and at this time period, Jesus Christ was those answers for you. Well, I know we're up against a hard end here, right? So I wanted to really make sure we got to that moment right there and really encapsulated this experience here for you, right? There's a lot of motivation that goes into taking these decisions, and it's not any one decision. And I think that's really what I wanted to highlight here, right? Is that this journey is as personal as your story, right? And it's just as mine is as personal to my story, right? It's those little motivations and those little things that end up making the big decisions, right? And to really actually deconstruct and understand those motivations, right, it takes effort. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge the space that we've created here and take a moment to say thank you for your vulnerability, your honesty, and you're taking your effort just to honestly experience what that time period was for you. Obviously, it's not completely accurate because as anyone where our Warstone story, memory recallers and everything like that. But this is the point of the descent, right? Is to understand what these things mean to us at this time and place, right? Wherever that might be for you, myself, and the traveler listening. So thank you, Jared. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you for your time, your effort, your space, your honesty. Thank you, traveler, for taking the time, the space, and the energy to be here on us on this descent. Jared, you have gone through many iterations, and I continue to be impressed and continue to get excited to know the different iterations to come. Anyone who's willing to take the time and space to understand why they were there and how they are here, and I think it is a worthy conversation to have. I think that you are a worthy person to listen to. Thank you, traveler. As always, you are more than worth it. You are enough.